pieces of the puzzle that I've decided provides. There's 10 of them. Tools and resources are 2 of them. We're a source of information, a source of motivation, a resource for the people that might need a little bit of encouragement. If this show, The Source, can help our members do that, I'm all in and I'm excited. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this edition of The Source. I'm one of your hosts, Kurt P. White. Happy to be here at Widecast Studios today. And once again, happy to be here with my co-host, Dr. Marianne Hoyle. Dr. Marianne, wonderful to see you as always.
Thank you.
Hope everything is going well in your world. I always, it just amazes me when we come together that I can't believe it's already been a month since we've been here before.
I know. It goes by really fast.
It's amazing. Even with everything going on in the world, it's just like time flies by, and I can't hardly believe that this is the last Tuesday of July. We're heading into August, and where did 2020 go? Although
if you're on vacation, you probably should.
Right. Yeah. Also, Dr. Mary and I are very excited for today's show because we have a guest in the studio with us, Mr. David Smith, who goes by on his podcast, Mr. David Raymond Smith. Welcome, David.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thanks for joining us today. Again, I'm so excited to have you here in the studio. David is a relatively new member of I've Decided, and just kind of introducing everybody, but he's got some great stories to tell. He is the owner and the host of his own podcast, which he calls In the Middle with David Raymond Smith. Much like myself, it goes by Kurt P. White. He uses his middle initial. So definitely, if you get an opportunity and you're a podcast listener, he's brilliant. It's a great podcast. Go out and search In the Middle with David Raymond. I'm sure he'll tell you a little bit about that as we share our stories today. But as we get started, and as we always do, Dr. Marianne, we talk about here at The Source whatever the weekly winning word is. And this week, it is attitude.
Yes.
According to our success journals, which we all have, by definition, we're saying attitude is your opinion or feeling about something. And the quote is, your attitude is like a price tag. It shows how valuable you are.
That's something to think about.
For sure. And, part of our intro when I was coming into the show, what I said for the show today is you often hear attitude being kind of in the context of an adjustment. We all have, things that happen to us that affect our attitude one way or another, but anytime you kind of come to what you consider being a negative, you say, man, I really could use an attitude adjustment.
Yeah.
So when those things happen, what do we do about it? And how do you approach it? And for me, I've always been accused, and maybe it's part lucky, but maybe it's just the way I kind of live my life, as one that has more of a positive attitude. And there's no doubt when somebody would ask me, or I look at that and say, yeah, that's helped me. That helps my communication. It helps the way I'm able to impress upon people and connect with others. It's definitely a big part of my success. So when we knew we were going to talk about attitude and what we need to do to make that adjustment, and then I found out that David was available to be here today, I was like, this is perfect. What a great topic to sit and discuss, attitude. And I would open up by introducing once again David, our guest today, and just take a brief moment, introduce yourself to the listeners, and then just hit the ground running, man. How's your attitude today?
There you go.
It's good. So my name is David Raymond. I am super excited to be here today. So first off, thank you so much for inviting me on the show today. It's great to be here with you, Kurt, and with you, Dr. Marianne, and to be part of this incredible group. As you said, I am newer to the group, but have in just the short amount of time I've been a part of it, have been so encouraged and so motivated to kind of continue moving forward in my path as it is right now. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here today. So again, my name's David Raymond. I am a banker by day, so I am in the management field at a financial institution.
Mm-hmm.
And then at night, I wear a lot of hats. So I am a husband. I'm a father of 3 incredible children. I am pursuing my bachelor's degree right now. I have my podcast. I am working on launching as a speaker. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I wear a lot of hats in the evening, but all of that is really centered around sharing my story.
Right.
It would take me way more than a few minutes to share my story, but if I were to sum it up, it is definitely a scenario where attitude absolutely comes into play. Mm-hmm. So for a long time in my life, I kind of had an attitude that no one would listen to me. And actually, when I think of the word attitude, the first word that comes to my mind is mindset. Right.
Which I think is great, because you now know that that's one of the pieces of the puzzle to success here at I've Decided, is having the right mindset. So right. I look at mindset and attitude as being very equivocal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And for a long time in my life in particular, I had this mindset that, hey, all of these things that have happened, all of these things that I've experienced, all of the things that have been said to me, done to me, all of that is just, it is what it is, and there's no benefit to it. And even if I thought that there was, who would listen to me? Because who am I, right?
Right.
It wasn't until probably 3 years ago where I, kind of was finally able to put down the last of the, struggles, I guess you could say. I mean, everyone has daily struggles, right? But
Sure.
the things that really keep you tied to something.
Attachments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Bad habits, old relationships, all of those things, until about 3 years ago when I finally had a moment where
Mm-hmm.
it was like, okay, I'm walking into the light. I'm walking out of all of these negative pieces. I finally started examining, what's the purpose behind all of this? What is this for? And over the course of the last few years, and even more so hyper focused over the last probably 6 months or so, I've kind of just started to get this mindset and this attitude of, no, like, these things that happen, they are for a purpose. They are for a reason. I may not know what those are just yet, but I think I have a glimpse of it. And so that's when I decided to just be open and be vulnerable and share my story, share my heart, because I feel like if I can change my attitude about it, even if only one person ever listens, that's one person who I've helped. That's one person whose life has hopefully been impacted, and they've hopefully been encouraged and motivated to take whatever the pieces of their situation are and use it for the greater good, if you will.
Sure. No, that's a great attitude and way to look at it. And that transition that took place is kind of like a revelation to you, and to readjust and to move forward. I think that's awesome. And I should point out, you did mention the fact that, and he's a wonderful father from what I've seen at this point, but he did mention that there's 3 kids at home. They are all under the age of 4.
Right.
So
it is a busy house.
That takes a tremendous positive attitude just to juggle what it is that you juggle, and to do such a great job with your wife, Krista, which again, hello. It's, they're a tremendous family, and there's no doubt that you would not be able to do what you do on a daily basis without the right mindset and the right attitude.
Right. I owe a lot of that to my wife. She
and we all do.
Right?
Not your wife, I just mean
right. Yes.
I shared with Dr. Marianne a little before you got here, and I wanted to ask you for sure. Give us a little bit of details or insight on how did you come up with your podcast title of "In the Middle." What does that mean?
Yeah, so I have this theory. It's always scary, right? When someone goes into, I have this theory. I have this theory that everything that happens to us in our life happens in the middle. So at the very minimum, we are born and we die. Everything else is in the middle, right? At the very minimum.
Yes.
However, if you really start to break it down, every aspect and season of life also has a beginning, an end, and a middle. Whether it's your career, whether it is your marriage, whether it is parenting, going to school, whatever it is, there's a beginning, an end, and everything else that happens is in the middle. Mm-hmm. And it's my theory and it's my thought process that the middle is, number one, where life is generally the hardest. It's really easy to start something, and it's really satisfying to finish something, but it gets really tough in the middle. The middle is where we run into the most obstacles. The middle is where we face the most adversity. But on the flip side of that, I also believe that the middle is where we grow. It's where we learn, and it's where we become who we are created to be. At one point in the podcast, I say the middle can either make us or break us. I know for myself, I spent a lot of my life being the guy who starts really, really well, but when it would get tough and when it would get difficult, I jump ship. Yeah. Right? Whether that is, I've spent a few years in my job and now I'm kind of at that point where, hey, just being good isn't good enough anymore. Now you got to put your head down. Now you got to get into the work. I would be like, oh man, this position over here looks way better.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what really led me to, as I was thinking through, okay, well, how am I going to share my story? How am I going to, reach people? What would be applicable to anyone, essentially? That's where I really landed with this in the middle subject matter, because it is everything that we do in life happens in the middle, and we have a choice. We can either work through it and come out on the other side a better person, or we can run away from it. And we have a choice. We have a choice every single day, whether we're going to cave in, give up, and quit, or whether we're going to keep going.
That's awesome. I love the idea. I love the topic, and you're so right about, the extreme being the beginning and the end, and where most, looking at it from that viewpoint, we spend 99.9 whatever percent of our life in the middle. And I guess the more positive attitude you have through all of that, the more successful you're going to be. And it is a struggle sometimes to keep up that attitude and keep the positivity. And one thing that went through my head as you were talking is when we are going through those seasons and we're in the middle and the obstacles present themselves, how nice is it, or how comforting it is to know that, first of all, you have family and, around you to support you, but then a community like I've decided, which again, welcome, a group of like-minded people who we're all going through different seasons of our life, but the way you're presenting it is, but the similarity is we're all in the middle.
Right.
And whether you want to consider you're currently stuck in the middle, or whether you're excelling at this point, or what's coming up next, let's all come together and work together and encourage and lift one another so we can make it through those seasons of life.
Yeah.
And so once again, awesome. I love the name. If you get a chance, go out and find that podcast. It's brilliant. Anything to add to that, Dr. Marianne?
Attitude is a tricky thing, because I think it changes minute by minute.
Absolutely.
Second and all that. And I just know for me, because I've been working on my attitude forever.
Haven't we all?
Kind of thing. I think that the thing I always tell myself, especially the older that I get, is why not? Why not think good about it? Why not? Until it shows me different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that changes a lot of things, because I think that you actually even attract more of that if you feel more of that and you
Yeah,
do more of that. Yeah.
That's a great example I've shared before. You know, when you go in with the attitude of, which I've been accused of always, of overanalyzing things and always asking why.
Yeah.
You know, I owe that a lot to my wife Lisa now. You know, she's encouraged me to change your attitude, change your mindset, and ask why not. And it opens a whole nother new world.
So you know different.
And I think it's really important too. I think we have to think about what is our external attitude and what is our internal attitude. Because I'm super guilty most of the time of putting on a brave face, right? I actually just put up a post on Instagram before I headed over here, and I just held up a little note card and I said, it's okay to ask for help,
Sure.
right? I am super guilty of, you know, putting the mask on and just being like, hey, everything's okay and I'm great, and let's, you know, let me push you, let me motivate you, let me do this. But internally, my attitude is, man, I can't do this anymore, or no one's probably even listening. What is this all worth? And so I think it's really powerful when we can find when our external and our internal attitude can come together. And obviously, we would hope that those would come together on the positive side and not the negative side. But there's something powerful when the two meet in the middle, no pun intended.
Nope.
And when we can make sure what's happening on the inside of us is also coming on the outside of us as well, and it's not just a ruse, it's not just a sham, right? We all have our days. We all have bad days, right? So I'm not saying that we should just traipse around like everything's A-okay all the time, because honestly, sometimes people need to know that you are going through something, because they need to know that there's someone else like them, and that there's someone else who can walk alongside them because they may be going through something as well.
Yeah, which is the definition of encouragement. This is coming alongside and lifting somebody up. So no, and that's a great point, looking at it from an external and internal point of view. You know, they are different. So I told you I was going to ask you about this before we were done, and I certainly want to at least bring up, you know, David has one of his recent versions is all about the musical Hamilton, and he came for a viewing party when it came out on July 3rd to my house, and he confesses that he's been obsessed since. Which is, his obsession is not the point of the story. The point of the story was there at the end. Your podcast was 11 things that you took away. The last one goes a little bit with what you shared with us today about the fear of people not really wanting to hear what you have to say. How has your attitude changed? And tell us a little bit about that 11th thing that Hamilton taught you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came to the viewing party completely blind to Hamilton. I had never seen it. I think I may have heard a song here or there, but had never really listened through it. So
you got Nickelodeon and Disney.
Right, exactly. So I came in completely blind to it, and as you stated, and as I stated in the podcast, I've been obsessed since. It's been on repeat, both the movie on Disney Plus as well as the soundtrack. But yeah, so that 11th thing. So there's a couple different times in Hamilton. If I remember right, the first time it gets said, George Washington says, you can't control who lives, who dies, and who tells your story. If you fast forward to the end of the show and the end of Hamilton's life, he's been killed by Aaron Burr, and we find out that his wife Eliza spends the next 50 years of her life doing everything she can to tell Hamilton's story, right? To advocate on his behalf and to uphold the values that he had. And throughout that song, you hear them say again and again, who lives, who dies, who tells your story. And it just really impacted me, because I think it's a beautiful thing that Eliza spent so much time advocating for Hamilton and telling his story. But how much more of an impact could it have made? Now, granted, he wasn't alive, so there's other surrounding things, but how much more of an impact could it have made if he could have told his own story, right? And so that's really kind of where my mind and my attitude and my mindset is now, is I can do one of two things. So number one, I disagree. We can control, maybe not who lives and who dies, because only God you know, is the author and the finisher of life. But we can control who tells our story. I disagree with George Washington in that moment. We can control it. And how powerful would it be if you can say, whether it is one-on-one, whether it is in a small group, or whether it's on a stage in front of thousands of people, you can say, hey, this is what I've gone through. This is what I've learned. Here's how I have decided to move forward. Something I say all the time is, here's how I've taken my mess and I've looked into my hope-filled future. And how great and how powerful is it if you can do that yourself? Because you're the only one who experiences what you experience. You're the only one who feels it. You're the only one who knows the heart of it. Right. Marianne may be able to tell your story, Kurt, but she's never going to tell it as good as you can.
So I'm just going to, we're getting close to the end of the time, David. I can obviously see your passion, but, you know, Dr. Marianne, it's obviously an attitude or a mindset change that you saw in David's, even in his face as he was telling us the story, where he started out just a few years ago thinking nobody wanted to hear, where now look at him and is ready to share. And you're encouraging all of us, too, by sharing that and saying, hey, your stories need to be heard. So once again, got to the end of our time here at the Source today. David, I knew it was going to be a great show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And I love your attitude. And
PeoriaLife.com.
Dr. Marianne, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, all of you, all of our I've Decided members. Look forward to seeing you next month.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you.
PeoriaLife.com.
Nice.